So he never need to ask for forgiveness.
真侪人要找看伊有什么缺点，
Many people were trying to find his shortcomings.
有做什么唔对，
Did he do anything wrong?
这人拢都找袂到。
And all these people could not find anything.
唔单单是伊朋友找袂到，
Not only could not his friends find any fault in him,
伊的对手也找袂到。
neither could his enemies find any fault in him.
反对的人，亲像祭司长，还是大祭司、文士，兼且包括法利赛。
Those who opposed him, the chief priests, the high priests, the scribes, and perhaps even the Pharisees,
伊真出来要找法律唔对，
they were trying their best to find fault in him.
到落尾就请假的证人做假的见证，总是最后为啥假钱为啥不吧？
But in the end, they had to find some false witnesses to testify falsely against him, but their stories did not jive.
迄个中心的人，罗马的省长彼得多，
And even the governor, Pilate,
心个真正找无什么唔对，
had to go through a long process of finding fault and could not find any fault in him.
就是证人面前洗手。
So he had to wash his hands in front of the public.
伊讲我袂准你定这个人的罪，总是你若要定罪，这是恁的代志，跟我无关
He
系。
says, I cannot find any fault in this man and I cannot sentence him, but if you want to sentence him to death, his blood will be on your hands.
遐个学生分底3年，还是3年半，
And his disciples who followed him for 3.5 years,
伊若看袂到有什么唔对。
they could not find any fault in him.
直到犹大为耶稣了，心内真艰苦。
And after Judas Iscariot betrayed him, he was filled with grief.
良心坏了，伊自杀。
And his conscience was bothering him, and Judas Iscariot committed suicide.
这个是迄个第三个，
This is the third person.
这个是迄个真正的好人。
This is the true good person.
事实上，什么人有资格通审查人是这个人。
And if there is anyone who has the authority to judge, it would be this third person.
并且有超人的地位甲意识。
In fact, he is omniscient, and his wisdom surpasses that of man.
伊知影人的外面，伊也知影人的内心。
He knows the external being of a person, and he can also look into their heart.
伊知影人的动作，伊也知影人的动机。
He knows the actions of men, and he also knows the motive behind those actions.
伊无偏心，伊是第一公道。
But he is not prejudiced, and he is the most just.
这个第三个人对这个人做一个结论。
And this third person made a conclusion about these two persons before.
伊讲迄个救世人，比迄个法利赛人大胜千亿。
He says the tax collector will be justified before the Pharisees.
我想最后所有结论甲咱一般人的结论甲看法真无相似。
I'm sure the conclusion that Jesus drew is a bit different from how we ordinary people will draw a conclusion.
我想最后所看到一款物件，是咱看无的。
I'm sure Jesus saw some things there that is beyond our eyesight.
你想最后所伫这法利赛人心中看见什么？
What do you think Jesus saw in this Pharisee?
伊是毋是真是一个好人？
Is he truly a good person?
为影即个代志无做，
Yes, true. He did not do certain things.
欠债无机会，
Maybe he didn't have a chance.
欠债无人知影。
Perhaps nobody know about it.
有影伊做真侪好代志，
But true, he did a lot of good things.
总是做这好代志，是为着要互人看见，要为着互人学咯。
But many of these things, good things that he does, is for the accolade of people.
我想最后所看这个法利赛人时阵，伊看到甲别人差不多。
I'm sure that when Jesus saw the Pharisee, he says he's no different than other people.
甚至看伊比别人更较可怜，
In fact, he had pity on the Pharisee
因为伊唔知影伊家己的欠债 唔知伊家己实在情形。
Because the Pharisee did not realize his own situation before the Lord, and he doesn't know his own shortcomings.
这个人啊，唔是咧祈祷，
And this person is not actually praying.
虽然你祈祷我真长，
Although he had a long prayer,
我想伊是咧演讲，
I'm sure he is making a speech.
因为祈祷是咧讲互上帝听，
Because when you pray, you are communicating with God.
啊，总是这个人是咧讲互伊家己听，
But this person is speaking so that he himself will hear his word.
啊，所以圣经讲，伊是自言自语讲互家己听。
And that's why the Bible tells us that he is only speaking about himself rather than others.
伊是咧批评人，
He is criticizing
伊
others.
看见别人的缺点，总是看袂见家己的缺点，
He saw the shortcomings of other people, but not his own.
啊，所以家己感觉真正满意，
So he felt so satisfied.
变成伊是找一寡真惨的人来做标准来比较。
And in fact, he used the lowest of the low people in society as standards for comparison.
啊，所以会通讲我无亲像别人。
That's why he can say, I'm not like the others.
我想主要所看伊，毋是咧祈祷，毋是咧感恩，伊是咧甲上帝报告。
I'm sure when Jesus saw him, he knew that he was not praying, but the Pharisee was actually making a report.
伊感觉这世界真黑暗，
He felt that this world is dark.
感觉真侪人咧做歹代志，
There's so many evildoers.
真侪人袂记做好嘅代
There's
志。
so many people who are not doing the right thing.
啊，伊讲上帝毋知会拄眠，袂得靠嘅。
So he wonders whether God is falling asleep and not paying attention to the evildoers.
啊，所以就甲上帝叫醒，
So he has to wake God up.
啊，所以就甲上帝报告。
So he has to report what's going on to God.
我想主要所看见这法利赛人嘅时阵啊，
I'm sure when Jesus saw the Pharisee,
伊毋是伫咧感恩，
he was not thanking the Lord.
有啦，伊有感谢嘅意思，
Yes, he had the meaning of thanks,
总是伊是咧感谢家己。
but he's actually thanking himself.
啊，亲像伊咧甲上帝讲，
It's just as if he's telling God,
上帝啊，我真正好啦，
God, look at me, I'm such a good person.
你知影？
Do you know?
你有看见无？
Have you seen me?
上帝你真福气啊！
God, you are so blessed.
世间还有亲像我一款人，
You still have me in this world.
世间就剩我一个人。
I'm the only one left in this world.
上帝啊，
God,
毋是我就感谢你，你就感谢我。
it's not that I have to thank you, but you have to thank me.
我想主要所看这人是，
I'm sure when Jesus saw this man,
伊心内看到骄傲，
he saw pride in his heart.
骄傲会互真水的物件变做一歹。
And pride will ruin something beautiful.
骄傲比较其他的罪不可谈赢，
Pride is more fearful than any other sin.
因为机会罪是人性罪，人软弱，
Because other sins are the weaknesses of man.
啊，总是骄傲是魔鬼的罪，
Pride comes from Satan.
啊，骄傲就天使变做魔鬼。
And pride causes an angel to fall as the devil.
是主要说是安尼看这个法利赛，
I'm sure that's how Jesus viewed this Pharisee.
主要说这个看这个天使，
How did Jesus view the tax collector?
主要说看你这个人，
He saw this sinner.
你看一切是对的，
Yes, he is a bad man. He did a lot of wrongdoings.
啊，总是主要说啊，伫这天使人的心中看到一方面。
But at the same time, Jesus saw a few things in the heart of this tax collector.
伊看到诚实，
He saw honesty.
这人短短祈祷，每一字拢总是对伊心内出。
Although the man's prayer was short, every word was uttered out of his heart.
我想主要说伫心内看到信心，
In this heart, Jesus saw faith.
伊相信讲上帝是一切恩典能力的来源。
Because the tax collector believed that God is the source of all grace and mercy,
只有上帝通帮助。
and only God can help him.
我想主耶稣伫这细腻的心中看到谦卑，
I'm sure Jesus also saw humility in the heart of this tax collector.
所以主耶稣讲，这人道，第二人道比头一个人来先称义。
That's why Jesus says, this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God.
心里的称义，
What does justification mean?
意思是讲伊的罪已经赦免，
That means his sins have been cleansed and forgiven.
上帝无再记念伊罪。
And God does not remember and recall anymore his sins.
意思主耶稣这个结论哦，有公道。
You think that the conclusion that Jesus arrived at is just.
我想要公道。
I'm pretty sure it's very just.
主耶稣用上一款的标准来评定。
Because Jesus uses the same standard to pass judgment on these two fellows.
主耶稣要切诚意的，
And what Jesus is looking for is one thing,
谦卑的心。
the humble heart.
上帝主动调和，
Because God will obstruct the proud
是阮谦卑。
and will give grace to the humble.
各位主耶稣讲故事了，伊家己讲，
After Jesus had said this parable, he himself said
原来是自高的，得较感谢你；
that he who exalts himself will be humbled,
自卑的，
and he who humbles himself
得较信。
will be exalted.
啊，我是主耶稣也真公道。
I'm sure Jesus is very just.
这两个人吼，拢总得到因想要得到的物件。
These two fellows did receive what they came for.
这个世界啊，得到伊所要得到的物件。
The tax collector received what he wanted.
伊甲上帝讨恩典，伊甲上帝讨怜悯，
He asked mercy and grace from God.
啊，上帝互伊恩典，上帝互伊怜悯。
God indeed granted him grace and mercy.
啊，这个法利赛人
And the Pharisee
无甲上帝讨话，
did not ask anything from God
因为伊感觉伊无欠，
because he does not feel that he needs anything from God.
啊，所以无得到话。
So he did not receive anything.
咱看到三个人，
We've seen these three people.
最后我讲这个心，
And lastly, I'm going to talk about the heart.
啊，这是主的心，
And this is the heart of the Lord Jesus Christ.
主的心是公平的。
The heart of the Lord Jesus Christ is fair.